The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Years ago, I shot 10 bags of heroin every day. Heroin is a beast, and that beast has infiltrated every town and city in America. In 2016, 64,000 Americans died of an accidental overdose of opioids. I hope that the stories we bring you on this show save lives in 2018. I'm Richie Farrell. I'm a heroin addict. Okay, I want to thank you very much for joining us today for a live show called I'm a Heroin Addict. And I'm a heroin addict, former heroin addict with over 3 decades of being clean from a 10-bag-a-day habit. Today we have, along with my great anchor here, I call her my anchor, Jazz. I call her Jazz, Jasmine. We have this great show on family addiction because, of course, as an addict, our families suffer greatly. And I remember a quick story. I was just thinking of Matt, my guest, who you'll meet here in a minute. I remember being dope sick. And I remember walking to my house, and I was going to try and steal something. And I was dope sick, which we all know is pretty sucky, right? And so the doors were locked, and the key didn't work anymore. And my mother was in there, and she wouldn't come to the door, and I kept banging the little square glass. She came down, and she said to me, if you don't leave in seconds, I'm going to call the police. And I was like, what do you mean you're going to call the police? You're my mother. She's got to leave now. And I'll never forget walking away that day, realizing that I had nobody left in the world. Nobody left, my mother. And it did something to me. And when I think back now of how much I damaged my family from my kids and stuff, and I get calls all the time, and on families that are broken apart by this. So we're going to discuss that. Matt's a great guest here who's going to speak on his personal testimony. But first, I would like to introduce Jazz, my anchor. Go ahead, take it.
Thanks, Richie. So my name is Jasmine. I'm a heroin addict and a drug addict. I was in active drug addiction for over 14 years. I've been clean and sober for 16 months now. I've done a lot of damage to my family, and some of those relationships are still being repaired, and it's going to be ongoing, but that's okay. Talking about being alone and having nothing, when I found my way to recovery, that's exactly where I was. When I had first found my way to my recovery in 2015, I was homeless. I was staying in this house that was filled with mold. There was no electricity, no running water, and I just remember being caked in filth. And there was a little kid pool outside that we would wash up with sometimes, but it got really gross in the hot weather because there was no way to change out the water. And I had nothing, and my family, what I had perceived as then, had abandoned me, but really I had done terrible things to them and pushed them away. And when I came to recovery, I had felt very lonely. And what happened is I was really fortunate because I was put in this community of individuals who loved me and helped me and encouraged me to find my place. So it's really cool as we're doing this episode today on the disease of addiction and how it impacts the family. Our guest here is someone that I consider family, and someone that I've met in my sobriety and who has encouraged me and loved me and just always been there for me. And I see Matt do that for a lot of people. You are family to me, but why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Thanks, Jasmine. Yeah. My name's Matt. I'm a heroin addict and an alcoholic. As Jasmine said, our paths crossed in recovery, which is a blessing. I feel the same way about you. You're our family. Helped me through some difficult times, but For me, I affected my family in such a negative way. I have 2 children. My daughter just turned 8. My son turned 4 last October. And because of my thinking problem and with my thinking problem, my crutch was always heroin, and unfortunately, I lost the rights to my children. They went up for adoption, and my family took them on, and I'm so grateful that
Who took them on?
my parents, my mother and my stepfather, took them on. And my dad actually has been a big part of that as well, helping financially when they needed it. But my children's mother, my current girlfriend, we're back together, but we took some time apart to get sober. But during that time where we were using together, we lost everything. We lost our children, we lost our apartment, we lost our jobs, we had nothing. And eventually we lost each other, and to, like I was saying to you before, like if someone had told me about 3 years ago that I would be as big of a part of my children's lives today as that they would still see me as dad, I wouldn't have believed you. I had no one left. My family as a whole, and my family, like I can just say it this way, my entire life, my family is very big. My mom has 5 brothers. We're a very big family. We're close-knit. Family get-togethers at least once a month, family dinners, everything. I wasn't part of that for at least 5 years. And that's not like me.
Right.
So to be taken away from it and to be told by my parents eventually, you're not welcome here anymore until you get the help that you need. It was the boundary that they needed to set for me to be able to go on the path of recovery. And thank God that they did that.
Talk a little bit about your kids and what that damage did to your children.
Well, fortunately, my son was young enough to not really understand it.
Right.
My daughter, on the other hand, she definitely wondered where mom and dad were. And to look back at it now, it breaks my heart that I did that. But at the same time, I was sick. I needed help. And at that point in my life, I didn't want help. I had one solution and one solution only, and that solution was doing heroin or drinking or whatever other drug I could find if I couldn't find what I wanted. So to have to repair that relationship, it took consistency on my behalf. It took me showing up once I got sober, at least when I said I was going to show up. Because there was a span of time where in active addiction, where this is after our children were taken from us, that we would have visits with our kids.
How were your children taken to you? Someone reported?
Yeah, we were reported multiple times. I mean, there were multiple overdoses at our apartment with 2 small children in it. My son was less than 6 months old, and there was probably an overdose reported at least twice a month at our apartment. And
You and your wife and girl?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had before my son was born, I had over 3 years sober. But I got away from a program. I stopped going to meetings. I stopped praying. I stopped doing all the things that kept me sober. And it just took all of life piling up on top of me without me having the solutions that I had in place to just turn back to what I thought would be my solution.
Right.
So I have Matt. So you're a pretty cool guest, right? Because you get to be an advocate for the suffering addict who's feeling the pain, and then you also get to be an advocate for the family who's also suffering. So you have 2 roles here. And doing what I do, I work with a lot of women, and women always tell me well, I can't focus on this, or I hear all these plethoras of reason, which are very valid reasons on why they can't do what they need to do to focus on themselves. And one of the biggest reasons that I hear is well, I have to get home to my children. Well, I have to get home to my children. Can you share a little bit on your experience of taking a step back and focusing on you and how that allowed you to be there for your children?
Absolutely.
Great question.
I mean, fortunately, I'm in a different position. I know a lot of people aren't in this position that I was blessed with having a family that was so willing to take on the responsibility of at that time, a 3-year-old and a 6-month-old child They were more than willing to take on that responsibility so I could get the help that I needed. And unfortunately, it took multiple years for me to actually get back on the recovery horse. But to be able to take a step back and realize that I was of no help to my children unless I was able to help myself, unless I was able to focus on what I needed to focus on, which was going to meetings, staying sober for a minute at a time at times. It was just, there were times in my life where it was like a minute at a time I needed to stay sober.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
tell
And so
yeah.
to have like the family that was there to be able to do that for me, and even today, like today I'm a little bit over 2 years sober, and
Congrats, brother.
thank you. And but my parents still have my children, but it's because I'm in school full time now. I work full time, and they're allowing me to do these things so I can be able to provide for my family as a whole within the next 5 years or so.
Wow.
And I'm blessed to have that.
Yeah.
But there are people who are out there I know who don't have that opportunity, who don't have someone that can take on their children like my family was able to do. But if you do have that as an option, as difficult as it is, and I can tell you it was a very difficult thing for me to do. And in sobriety, I was a week away from celebrating my year, and I signed my rights over to my children, to my parents. But in that moment in time, I knew that it was the most selfless decision that I could do for my children. It was the best choice that I could have made for my kids.
Right.
Because what was I going to do? Move out of my sober house and move my children into a one-bedroom apartment in downtown Nashua or Manchester?
Yeah.
Or allow my children to be in a great school district in a big home where they each have their own room,
Yeah.
with a huge yard to play in,
Right.
where I can still be
Yeah.
an active member of their life,
Yeah.
where I can still be dad. So I was very fortunate to have that opportunity.
But that takes tough love to do that. We talk about like what my mother did to me by forcing me away. So how would you, if you were to tell someone that's watching from your parents, that are worrying about their child, the son or daughter, what would you tell them?
I can tell them what I tell like my current clients' parents, and that's setting healthy boundaries is probably the most important thing you can do with an addict in active addiction, and even in early on recovery. I mean, I think that even today, even with 2 years, I think my parents still have to set healthy
I
boundaries
just think
with me.
with human beings in general.
Yeah.
I mean, healthy
Yeah.
boundaries is important. It's important to be
Yeah.
like, hey, listen, you can. For me, it was my parents were like, okay, you can come over and you can visit from this time to this time, And it started off with like 3-hour visits, and they wanted to see that I was showing up on time, and and then it was okay. Now you can stay for the day.
Yeah.
All right, now you can stay and you can feed them and you can put them to bed. Let's see how you handle that.
Right,
And let's see
right,
if you
right.
show up the next week to do the same thing.
Right.
And it's slowly giving me more and more responsibility as a father, and kind of weaning me back into like that role with them. And now it's just like it's blossomed over the last 2 years into like I am dad, and thank God for my parents, because they've never once have told my parents otherwise. I've always been
So
dad.
what turned you in? You had some recovery before you relapsed, and so what turned it around this time?
My parents setting the boundary, telling me
Yeah.
that I had nowhere else to go. Yeah, I was staying at my dad's house. I was in and out of treatment centers. I think I went to 15 different detoxes in 2015. And my dad said, January 1st, I'm leaving for business, and you can't stay here anymore after that, so you need to find a place to go. And I either was going to stay in my car or I could go to treatment. So I chose to go to treatment. And I had my mom drop me off there, so I didn't have my vehicle there.
Yeah.
Because that was my MO. I'd always be
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm going to treatment, and I'd drive myself there so I could leave when I wanted to.
Right.
I'd get people off my back for a couple days, and then I'd come back. I'd give some lame excuse as to why I got kicked out.
Right.
But this time my parents made it firm. They said, do you want to be a part of your children's lives? Do you want to be a part of your family's life anymore? Like I said a few minutes ago, I was very family oriented for my whole life. So to have my family say, you're not going to have us anymore, really struck a nerve with me and made me realize I needed to turn it around.
So we got a question up here for you in a couple minutes, but how did you do it? Did you go on Suboxone or methadone or what?
I did not. I tried methadone. I tried that, but what methadone did for me was just provided me with not feeling sick until I got my next fix. It didn't make me stop doing anything. And if I couldn't find anything for a day, I just didn't feel sick.
It's almost,
That's what it was for me.
for me, it was almost just like, you know how you talked about like how your family enabled you. Like it just enabled me. I didn't have to change. I didn't have to take a look at things. Like I was still okay, or so I thought I was okay in that moment. And if I needed,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I mean, I was still waking up every morning going to the state dealer instead of my dealer.
Yeah.
So,
That's how I look at
what
it.
would you tell someone that's watching us today, or a mom or dad that their son or daughter's on methadone? Because it's a hard thing, right? It's a hard
Very
thing.
hard to kick.
Yeah, I thought it was worse to kick than heroin, personally. But I mean, if somebody I was on a show once on MSNBC, and I spoke out against it, and I got killed in Twitter, and my son has been on it he's got a job, his family. I mean, she destroyed.
Yeah.
She went up and down, and I apologized
And
to
around
her.
the corner too.
Yeah, it was tough, you know.
Yeah,
but-
absolutely. I
So
mean,
what would you say to those? And then
I know-
Jazz has a question.
I know
for you.
people who are successful on it. I do. I know people who have been successful, who do use it the right way.
Yeah.
Me personally, it didn't work. It didn't work for me. The only thing that worked for me was abstinence from it completely. Like I can't touch anything that's mood, mind altering at all ever again in my life. I just can't. And I know that.
Yeah.
And as hard as it was to kick heroin and methadone, I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world because of how I feel every day when I wake up today.
Right.
You know, but I'm not going to put anyone down who's on any type of maintenance drug. I'm not going to do it. Because if it works for that person, then
Right.
by all means, more power to you. As long as you're not sticking a needle in your arm anymore, I think it's okay. You
Yeah.
know?
So the question, Jazz, can you read that?
Will medically assisted treatment be the next big thing in treatment centers? Regardless of what is preferred, will they be forced to use it to get funding?
I hope not. I mean, I hope not.
Do you think
but-
that we're seeing a shift happen already in state-funded facilities?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, Suboxone and methadone, you know,
Yeah.
MAT is it's getting more popular now in state-funded facilities. However, my personal experience is the only MAT that I really love right now is Vivitrol, because I've seen such success on it. You know, I've seen people who had 15.
Because it's an antagonist.
Yeah, I've
It's
seen
the
people
only.
with 15-year IV
Yeah.
use it for 6 months that couldn't get past that 6-month mark that are now sober for over a year.
Well, I'm going to tell you a quick story to Connor. So right before Christmas, I was in St. Louis. I wrote a story in the Huffington Post about these 5, in the headlines were 5 heroin addicts celebrate Christmas, and they were recovered. They were all in recovery, but the paper wanted that in the thing. So they had this great picture of them, great people, all young, and every one of them were on Vivitrol. And one was taking the pill, one stopped. And so when I interviewed him, he would feel like on Thanksgiving, he knew he was going into a situation, so he took a pill in the morning.
Yeah.
And when he had a dream, when he had the heroin dream, he'd take a pill the next day. So they had, and I wrote it, put their pictures, they all work for the state in that program, that if someone ODs, they call you to go to the hospital. They have some type of program out there.
Mm-hmm.
Had their picture, I wrote what they were saying. They tried to fire him.
Wow.
The state tried to fire him because...
I'm also going to play devil's advocate because
Okay.
you hear of lots of success stories, but also there are so many people that don't succeed on it too, and there are so many people. So
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like it's not like this. In my opinion, it's just my opinion. That's all it is. It's not like this big miracle thing. You know what I mean?
I personally think that the only tried and true thing that works for me
Right.
is the 12 steps.
Yeah.
If I feel like if you're using Vivitrol and working a solid program, that it can be beneficial for you. But I do feel like, for me at least, the only thing that works for me on a daily basis is my relationship with my higher power and my work in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
I try and stay out of the political debates,
Yeah,
but I
it's-
just
but I'm
like you
just
guys were
saying,
sitting
you
there
know.
going back and forth, and I was like,
I
but
get
it's
it.
not
I
that
get it.
good.
I
It's
get it.
not. There's so many people that fail miserably on it, or
There
like
is.
I know so many people that like just because like you can't drink or do heroin doesn't stop them from smoking crack and
Right.
shooting coke, you
Right.
know,
Right.
or like people
Absolutely.
time it onto the days that they can do their heroin and they go get their Vivitrol. So it's yeah,
it's insane. It's insane. The thing that always bothers me is that how much money these cost. You
Right.
know,
Right,
and we
absolutely.
have a free program over here.
Yeah,
That they can
it's
go.
free.
They can go. I used to go.
Absolutely
I
free.
used to go in the morning and at lunch and at night.
Yeah.
You know, I used to go to 3
Absolutely.
meetings a day. So it boggles my mind that we've got away. I mentioned the word abstinence once to the woman who runs the Missouri, the state of Missouri, the money that the feds give her. And I mentioned that, why aren't, and just in an interview as a journalist, and she freaked. She freaked. Just because you made it doesn't mean people have to be strong. And I said, I wasn't saying. I believe everybody should be able to take something, you know, because first of all, Suboxone is a drug that was made by the pharma as a detox,
Absolutely.
not as a maintenance program.
Right.
And that's why it's a cash business. I mean, it's a great cash business, right? When you think of MAT,
Yeah.
it's a great business model. I wish I could run a bottle like that. There's no accounts receivable. You go and you pay for it and you get it, right? And
Yeah.
so they're making millions and millions of dollars on this, and there's a free program out there. And I'm not saying, and I don't want to shame or put anybody down, but I think that we have to go towards abstinence. We have to say the word.
Right, of course.
At
I
some
mean,
point.
I work for and went through a 12-step program. And if I didn't go through that program, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Yeah, you would have never. I would
I
have
know
never
that
gained
for
the level
sure.
of insight that I have now, and I probably my whole perception has changed on things by doing that. But we like got way off topic here.
Yeah, sorry,
We're
let's
on
go.
MAT, and the show's
Let's go
about
back to family.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, family, for me, it's like I said,
But what I want to just say for a minute, I don't mean to say. I mean, we see there's a lot of that where grandparents are raising. It's happening
yeah.
all over. So, right. So talk a little bit about that. Do you see that a lot? And-
absolutely. There's with the epidemic that we have going on nationwide right now, there's a numerous amount of children that are left right now with parents who are addicts. And what that leaves is that the grandparents of these children are taking over and stepping in and taking over the role of parenting. And for me personally, like I've said, it's if I didn't have that opportunity and those people in my life, if I didn't have my parents, I wouldn't be in my children's lives today. My children would be in the system. I wouldn't have had visits with them. I wouldn't be dad to them still. You know, like,
Right.
and that's, I know that not everybody has that opportunity, like I said earlier.
Right.
You know, but I'm fortunate where I had that. So if there is people out there who have that opportunity, I beg you to just take it, to take the time to be able to work on yourself. And if you have a family member that's willing to take on the responsibility of your children so you can work on yourself and stay involved in that child's life, I can tell you right now, it's been amazing for my children. Because like my family always says, it takes a village,
Right.
you know.
Society.
Yeah. Right.
So in like 60 seconds, I want you to describe from where your relationships went from like an active drug addiction with your children to where they're at today.
In active drug addiction, my relationship with my children was I was physically there.
Okay.
That is it. I was physically there, and that's it.
Okay.
My body was there, and that's all. So now, today, I am dad. I call and check in on them at least twice a day with my mom to see how their day was, to see how their morning is going. I'm involved in their life. I go over and I will cook dinner, or I'll go over and I'll just have dinner with them. I take them to do fun stuff. A couple of weeks ago, they had their school vacation, and I took them to Ashley and I took them to the museum, the aquarium for the
Yeah.
day. You know, I got to take my son on his first train ride, and he's obsessed with trains.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
like
yeah.
he was more excited to go on the T
Nice.
than he was to go to the aquarium. You know, I have pictures of him
We're
where
like
he's just like,
dreading it. He's just so excited.
he was so pumped up, you know, and like then we walk in and like the experiences that I have today with them like that.
Experiences.
You know, like those moments, those snapshots that I will forever remember, that they will forever remember.
Right.
That's what it's all about for me today.
Yeah, yeah.
Like because I remember being a kid and I still bring up to my parents memories that I have of being 7 or 5 and these fun things that they did, and they look at me like, how do you remember that? Because it was a great memory. I always remember those things, and I know that my kids, that I'm building those memories and those experiences with them again. You know,
Yeah,
and to
yeah.
be able to do it with their mother as well, like that's just another blessing. You know, to
Amazing.
have both of us
Yeah.
sober and being a part of their lives and getting to do these things again together when we never thought we would.
So where do you work now, and what do you do there?
I actually work for Gatehouse Treatment in
Okay.
Nashua.
Yeah.
We're located on Northeastern Boulevard, and I'm the lead case manager and the medical liaison.
And you're going to school, too. What are you going to school
I'm
for?
going to school to become a psych nurse practitioner.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So my course load's pretty heavy.
Yeah.
I go to school full time. I work full time, so it's difficult.
You're a
but
dad.
I'm a dad. I'm a son.
You show up for people in recovery.
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
you've come really far in 2 years.
Yeah, it's a blessing.
It's a
That's
blessing.
amazing.
But what would you tell parents that are watching this? The one, there's a lot, okay? It's very complex, right? But what would be the one thing you would say their son is strung out and they're taking care of the kid? They don't know what's going to happen. What could you tell them?
That there's hope.
There's hope.
That recovery is possible,
Yeah.
and to set boundaries.
Yes.
Boundaries are the key, though, right?
They really
I mean,
are.
boundaries are the key
Yeah.
in any type of relationship.
We teach people how they're going to treat us.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
That's
yeah.
right. And
Absolutely.
it's you know, I get calls all the time from family members asking me like the magic potion to give them, and there really isn't one. The best thing that I heard you say, and you're living it by example, is hope.
Yeah.
Because and it took a lot of balls to sign your kids over. And, you know, that took balls. And because a lot of times people say, I can't, I got to go do this for my kids. And then, of course, they don't know how to handle life. So they're back. You know, I you know, the stuff I did with my kids in the car or outside the room wasn't crazy. But I want to thank you very much for coming on tonight. It's been amazing.
Yeah.
You've got an amazing story. I want to thank the audience very much. I want to thank Jazz, my anchor here, and we look forward to our next show. And thank you very much for watching us live here tonight. Thanks. Years ago, I shot 10 bags of heroin every day. Heroin is a beast, and that beast has infiltrated every town and city in America. In 2016, 64,000 Americans died of an accidental overdose of opioids. I hope that the stories we bring you on this show save lives in 2018. I'm Richie Farrell. I'm a heroin addict.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.